Hello student, in this session I am going to discuss about respiratory system of human in very short form. Okay, so this is the very short session or the short video in which we will discuss about the respiratory system of human, mainly some of the main points which you have to remember always. Okay, in my last video I have already discussed about the meaning of respiration, what is the meaning of breathing, external respiration, internal respiration or the cellular respiration, as well as we also discuss about the types of respiration. Okay, so mainly 4 types of respiration are there on the basis of their respiratory surfaces. So in case of human, our respiratory surfaces present in the lungs where the gaseous exchange actually taking place. Okay, so lungs present inside the thoracic cavity. That's why we have a duct system. We have a duct system through which air entering into thoracic cavity and exit from the thoracic cavity. Okay, so our respiratory system or the respiratory system of human, which is divided into 2 parts. One is the air conducting system, another is the gaseous exchange portion. One is the air conducting portion, another is the gaseous exchange portion. So one is the air conducting portion and another is gaseous exchange portion. Okay, so the respiratory system of human, which you can divide into 2 parts or you can study under 2 heads. One is the air conducting portion, another is the gaseous exchange portion. So air conducting portion which start from the nose, So nose, this is the elevation on the surface, this is known as the nose, and nose it has 2 opening and these opening are known as the nostril. So this is the external nostril. Okay, so the nostril which again divide into right and left nostril because of this septum. Okay, so right and left nostril which again fuse at the posterior side and they communicate to the nasal chamber. So right and left nostril which open into nasal chamber. So let's see here. Okay, suppose that this is the external, this portion, this is the external nostril and this is the nose. Okay, so the air conducting portion which starts from the external nostril. So air, the external nostril which communicate into the nasal chamber. So this is the nasal chamber. Now the nasal chamber open into pharynx and this portion is known as the nasopharynx. So this portion is the nasopharynx. Again, the mouth cavity also communicate with the pharynx and this region is known as oropharynx. All these things I have already discussed under the digestive system. Okay, so this is the oropharynx. This is the oropharynx. Okay, now so this pharynx region, there is 3 important part: nasopharynx, oropharynx, and towards the larynx. This portion again also known as the laryngopharynx. This portion also known as the laryngopharynx. Okay, so this is the laryngopharynx. I have already discussed under the digestive system. So the pharynx, this is the junction where this is the meeting point of the opening of nasal chamber as well as opening of the buccal cavity, and that is the opening of the laryngeo of pharynx, or this is the opening of the trachea. That is the opening of trachea or the windpipe, and there is the another opening which is known as the gullet. So this is the opening of glottis and this is the opening of gullet. So gullet which leads into esophagus, and this is the glottis, this opening, this is the glottis, which leads into windpipe or the trachea. So first larynx, then trachea. Okay, so this is the trachea. So now the air conducting portion, which starts from the external nostril, which leads into nasal chamber, and from nasal chamber to pharynx, then pharynx to larynx, then larynx to trachea. Then trachea, which divides into bronchus or two bronchi, primary bronchi, then secondary bronchi, then tertiary bronchi, then terminal bronchus, and then the bronchioles. So up to terminal bronchial, this portion, up to terminal bronchial, this portion, this is known as the air conducting portion. Okay, so I will discuss one by one. So the nasal chamber which leads into pharynx, then pharynx to larynx. So larynx portion present here. So this is the larynx. This is our larynx, and it also known as the Adam's apple. This portion also known as the Adam's apple. So before puberty, male and female, they have the similar size of the Adam's apple, but after puberty, the male, there is the higher growth of Adam's apple. So in case of male, Adam's apples is more prominent. So this is the larynx, and which also known as the Adam's apple, and this is the sound box. So this is the box like structure. Suppose that this is the neck portion, head portion, nose, this is the neck portion. So this is the box like structure. This is the one of the box like structure, and which is known as the sound box, because there is the cartilage, there is the elastic cartilage. There is the elastic cartilage. Okay, when air is forced into the larynx, then there is the vibration of elastic cartilage. So vibration of elastic cartilage which producing sound. That's why this is known as the larynx. In case of birds, syrinx is the sound producing organ. But in case of human, larynx is the sound producing organ. Okay, so inside the larynx, there is the elastic cartilaginous fold, which act as the vocal cord. These are known as vocal cord. Why these are known as vocal cord? Because the vibration of such vocal cord which produce the sound, that's why these are known as the vocal cord. Okay, so these vocal cords, it may be two types, false vocal cord and the true vocal cord. Suppose that this is the opening, of larynx. So it has two false vocal cord, then another two true vocal cords. Okay, so first pair, so the outer pair, this is the cartilaginous fold. This is the fold of cartilage at the outer side. This is the opening, and this fold, it has no role for the production of sound. That's why this is known as the false vocal cord. This is known as false vocal cord. But the inner fold of cartilage, this red color, two red color, one pair. So these red color vocal cord, other folds also present here, but these two red colored inner side present the red color fold of cartilage and which produce the sound. That's why this is known as the true vocal cord. So this is the true vocal cord and this is the false vocal cord. Okay. So the Adam's apple or the larynx present at the neck region, which is box-like structure. There is the vocal cord, one pair of false vocal cord. Vocal cord, this is the nothing but, this is the fold of the cartilage. The outer one, they have no role. That's why these are known as the false vocal cord. But the inner one, they produce true sound. That's why these are known as the true vocal cord. Okay. So this is the opening of larynx. Suppose that when air is forced into the larynx, then which vibrate and create the sound. That's why this is known as the sound producing organ. Okay. So now, so these larynx at the Adam's apple, this is the cartilaginous box-like structure. There are some of the paired and some of the unpaired cartilages are present. Okay. But we don't go through details. Okay. But some of the important cartilages are present or attached to the larynx. So what are these? So one is the thyroid cartilage. So one is the thyroid cartilage which is associated with larynx. Another is the circoid cartilage also associated with larynx. Then adenoid cartilage also associated with larynx, as well as epiglottis also associated with larynx. So epiglottis I have already told in my digestive system. So epiglottis, this is the elastic triangular shaped cartilage, which cover up the opening of glottis at the time of breathing and the swallowing. Okay. So this is the epiglottis which cover up the opening of glottis. This is the opening of glottis and this is the opening of gullet, means opening of esophagus. Okay. So suppose that this is the epiglottis. Okay. So I have already discussed about the epiglottis. So external nostril, then the nasal chamber, then the esophagus, then larynx, then trachea. So now come to the trachea. So trachea, this is the wind pipes. This is also known as the windpipe. So this is the larynx. This is the this portion, this is the larynx region. This is the sound producing organ. So larynx which leads into a tubular pipe like structure which goes from neck to the thoracic cavity. Okay. So the pipe like structure or the windpipe structure which entering into thoracic cavity from this neck region, from this Adam's apple, and this is known as the trachea. This is the trachea. Okay. Now the wall of trachea, which is provided with non-collapsible hyaline cartilage, and these cartilage, these are C-shaped, not complete ring like structure. So this is C-shaped structure. Okay. So the wall of trachea, which is provided with incomplete C-shaped hyaline cartilaginous ring like structure. So it is incomplete at the dorsal side, but at the frontal region which is complete. Okay. So this trachea at the middle of the at the middle of the thoracic chamber, which bifurcates into two main branch known as the bronchos and plural bronchi. So two primary bronchos or the main bronchos. So trachea, which bifurcates at the level of 5 thoracic vertebrae. So first the vertebrae, so this is the vertebral region at the dorsal side, the neck portion, that is the 7 cervical vertebrae. Then after thoracic region, we have 12 number of thoracic vertebrae, 12 number. So first one thoracic vertebrae, second thoracic vertebrae. So at the level of 5 number of thoracic vertebrae, so at the back side, the 5 number, at the level of 5 number thoracic vertebrae, the trachea which bifurcates into two primary bronchi or main bronchos. Okay, so suppose that this is the trachea, and suppose that this is the Adam's apple, or this is the larynx. Okay, suppose that this is the larynx, and these are the ring shaped structure, hyaline cartilaginous ring. These are the non-collapsible, which provide the mechanical strength. Okay, now, so at the fifth thoracic vertebrae, now trachea divides into two main bronchi, singular bronchos. So this is the main bronchos. Or you can say this is the primary bronchos, plural bronchi. Okay. Now, such bronchos which entering into lungs. So this primary bronchos which entering into lungs at the depression site, and this site is known as the hilus. This portion or this region is known as hilus, Hilus. So this is known as the hilus. So the main primary bronchos enter into lungs at the hilus region. Okay, so now main bronchos or the primary bronchos, it divides secondary, which forms secondary bronchos, then which again which form tertiary bronchi, then which again divide and redivide, which form terminal bronchi or singular terminal bronchos. Okay, so the main bronchos which divide and redivide, which forms terminal bronchi, then terminal bronchi again divides into bronchiole, which divides into bronchioles. Bronchos divide into bronchiole. So bronchiole also divide and redivide, and which again form the terminal bronchioles. Plural bronchiole, singular bronchiole. Okay, so terminal bronchioles are produced. So up to terminal bronchioles, this portion is known as the air conducting portion. This is known as the air conducting portion. Everyone clear up to this? Everyone clear up to this? This is the air conducting portion. That in such portion there is no exchange of gases. But what is the role of this air conducting portion? So main role of the air conducting portion is that it brings the air from outside to the respiratory bronchiole or the respiratory surfaces or the gaseous exchange portion. Okay, so it brings the air from outside to the alveolus or alveoli or gaseous exchange region. And second thing is that when the air conducting inside our air conducting tubes or the portion, the air which warms up equal to our body temperature, as well as which filtrate. So through, when water passing through this tube, the air filtrate, as well as this air which moistening also. Suppose that the humidity level is very low. When it entering into our body, then it brings which trap more moist, or it becomes more humid, okay, which is suitable for the our body or the lungs. So the air conducting portion which warm up the air, incoming air, which filtrate the incoming air, as well as which moistening the incoming air. So this is the main role of air conducting portion. So air conducting portion which starts from the nostril, so nostril to nasal chamber to pharynx, then pharynx to glottis, glottis to larynx, larynx to trachea, then trachea to bronchus, primary bronchus, secondary bronchus, terminal bronchus, then bronchioles, then terminal bronchioles. So up to this portion is known as the air conducting portion. Okay. Now come to the another portion. So this last portion, this is known as the gaseous exchange portion, or this portion is known as the respiratory portion. This portion known as the respiratory portion. So let me erase this portion, then it will be visible clearly. Okay. Suppose that this portion, okay. So this portion, this is the respiratory, this portion is known as the respiratory portion. So now the terminal bronchioles, bronchioles which entering into or which divide into respiratory bronchioles. Now respiratory bronchioles directly communicate with alveolar duct, okay. So from alveolar duct, number of alveolar sacs are open up. So number of alveolar sacs open into the alveolar duct, okay. So alveolar sac, this is the grape-like bunch of grape-like structure, or the sac-like structure of alveoli, singular alveolus. So alveoli, so number of alveoli present here, suppose that number of alveoli present, and which forms a grape-like structure. If you cut, then you find this type of structure. Okay. So this is known as the alveolar sac or atrium, singular, atria, plural, alveolar sac, and single individual portion, this one is known as the alveolus, and plural is known as the alveoli. Now the air which pushed into this alveolar duct, and from alveolar duct to the alveolar sac, and finally alveolus. So the alveolus wall, which is lined by very much flattened squamous epithelium, okay. Suppose that this is the single alveolus, and this is the flattened simple squamous epithelium, which is very much thin and which is enough to diffuse the air, okay. And each alveolus which is more vascular, which is supplied with more blood capillaries, okay. So it is supplied with more blood, okay. So easily air can exchange here. That's why this is known as the respiratory portion or the gaseous exchange portion. So gaseous exchange portion, it starts from the respiratory bronchiole, then the alveolar sac, then the alveolar duct, alveolar sac, and the alveolus. So this is the gaseous exchange portion. So gaseous exchange occurring because always the surface of alveolus which keep moist because of the continuous secretion of the mucus, which helping for the diffusion of air. And below such flattened squamous epithelium, there is the blood, which bring the deoxygenated blood. So oxygen easily can diffuse to the blood, and carbon dioxide from blood diffuse to the outgoing air. Okay. So the gaseous exchange we will discuss in later class. So gaseous exchange actually taking place inside the alveolus. So the air conducting portion which starts from the respiratory bronchioles, from respiratory bronchioles to alveolar duct, from alveolar duct to alveolar sac, from alveolar sac to alveolus. Okay, so this is the gaseous exchange portion. So one thing is that the epiglottis, which is elastic cartilaginous structure, but these ring-shaped cartilage, these are the hyaline cartilage. Internally trachea, it is lined by pseudostratified ciliated squamous epithelium. Sometimes, and some book written as the ciliated is common, stratified is common, but somehow, and some books written as the columnar, some written as the cuboidal, and some written as the squamous. But you have to remember the internal lining of trachea, which is ciliated stratified epithelium. It may be squamous, cuboidal, or the columnar, but mainly cuboidal or the squamous, ciliated stratified squamous or cuboidal epithelium, and also provided with mucus gland, continuously secrete the mucus, and such mucus which continuously push to outside. Okay, so this is whole about of the respiratory system of human. So respiratory system of human you can study it under two heads. One is the air conducting portion, another is the gaseous exchange portion. So one thing I left out here, so lungs. So lungs, the functional unit of lungs is the alveolus. The functional unit of lungs is the alveolus, because where gaseous exchange occurring here. Okay, then now these lungs which present inside the thoracic cavity, the most portion of the thoracic cavity, it is occupied by the lungs. So we have two lungs. So this is my right side, and this is my left side. So this is the right lungs, this is the left lungs. Okay, so left lungs which is smaller in size, but right lungs which is larger in size. Okay, right lungs is larger and left lungs is smaller. Okay, then the right lungs which is divided into three lobes, superior lobe, middle lobe, and the inferior lobe. Right lungs which is divided into three lobes, superior, middle, and the inferior lobe. So superior lobe, middle lobe, inferior lobe. Left lungs, it has two lobes, the superior lobe and the inferior lobe. But the left lobe at the middle, it has the concavity of heart. The heart actually present in between two lobes of lungs. Okay, and the terminal portion of heart which rests on this side. Okay, so this is the, suppose that heart. So heart which rests on the surface of the middle surface of the left lobe. That's why that is the concavity of the heart. So that is the concavity of heart at the left lobe, Okay, then the lungs, the such lungs which is covered by two membranous structure, okay, and this is known as the pleural membrane, which is known as pleural membrane. So this is the two membranous structure. In between there is the fluid known as the pleural fluid. So lungs, which is airtight in chamber. Lungs, so the whole body which is divided into two chamber, thoracic chamber, abdominal chamber, by the dome-shaped muscular partition. Dome-shaped muscular partition. So suppose that this is the dome-shaped muscular partition on which lungs rest on. So this is the dome-shaped muscular partition known as the diaphragm. So this is the diaphragm. Then the side portion, the thorax, that is the rib. The side portion, the thorax, these are the ribs. So the pleural cavity, which is surrounded by the side by the ribs. So these are the ribs. Front by the sternum, this is the ventral side sternum, and the back side or the dorsal side, the vertebral column. So the thoracic chamber or the pleural cavity, which is covered by ventrally by the sternum, dorsally by the vertebral column, side by the ribs, and the posterior side, that is the diaphragm, and the anterior region, that is the shoulder. So totally and everywhere it is covered by different structure. So pleural cavity, this is the airtight chamber. You have to remember, this is the airtight chamber. Okay. So lungs, which is sealed by the pleural cavity, lungs present inside the pleural cavity, which is airtight chamber. Okay. Lungs which occupied the most region of the thoracic cavity. Lungs rest on the diaphragm, dome-shaped muscular partition wall. Okay, and the surface of lungs which slide on the thoracic layer. That's why the covering of lungs, this is the pleural cavity, which reduce the friction of the lungs against the wall of thorax. Okay, so this is the whole about of the lungs, and the unit of lungs, which is the alveolus, the functional unit of lungs, this is the alveolus. About 750 million number of alveolus are present in human lungs. 750 millions number of alveolus or alveoli are present in human lungs. So this is whole about of the respiratory system of human. In my next video, I will discuss about the breathing mechanism, the external respiration of human, means inspiration and the expiration. Inhale and exhale. This is the two term, this is the two English word. Okay, but the biological or the medical science, inspiration and the expiration. Okay, so in my next video we will discuss about the mechanism of inspiration and the expiration. So if anyone missed my first video, then after this session, then go back and search the first video about the respiratory system. The heading is the types of respiration. Then you get the whole idea about the respiration. Thank you for watching.